All right, we should be good. We should be good. I'm just gonna get some stuff pulled up really quickly, and yeah, we're gonna get into this thing. Give me 1 second here. Um, we should be good. We should be good. Sweet. Stuff pulled up really quickly. All right, just had to double check sound, double check everything like that. Let me make sure that's all good. All right, cool. All right, we're gonna give it a second, let notifications go out, and then we are going to get started. As I figured I should update you all as things are getting quite crazy in this market today. Okay, so we see Bitcoin recaptured $40,000, which is of course a huge step in the right direction. And so, of course, with that does come many other things. Of course, there does come the idea that we could be going back into a bull market, and the idea that we may be continuing back towards some of those higher up macro levels. And so, of course, in today's episode, this live stream, we are going to be talking a little bit about what this all means, how this affects us. I'm going to take a look at the rest of the market. We're going to kind of cover some of our alts. We're going to get really deep into it. So, of course, let's go ahead and let's get straight into that. Okay. So, now that notifications have gone out, we are going to quickly let me just go ahead and pull up a few things quick. Okay. So, let's start with just what's going on. What's up, everyone? Bullish or bearish? I'm feeling better. I'm definitely feeling much better. I'm gonna go ahead and say that. Much better. Not 100% bullish yet, but definitely better. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get on it. What's up, peeps? Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's share this screen here. Let's share this window. Boom. Here we go. What's up, everyone? What's up? What's up? What's up? Okay, so kind of starting off, we've been, by the way, I'm going to start and open up with this. I've been covering this move over on my Twitter. 4 hours ago, we were talking about the clearing of the 20-day simple moving average. A little bit before that, we were talking about the fact that Bitcoin literally just was like, fuck it, we're just going to go to the moon. And it just takes off. A little bit before that, we were talking about Cardano. All of this is posted on my Twitter. Please do go follow me, Tyler Hill YT. I'm trying to grow my presence there. I feel like it's a much easier way for me to update you guys if anything significant does happen. And so for that reason specifically, please do go follow me there if you think I even know what I'm talking about, just a little, just a tad. I don't always, but just sometimes I do. Okay. So please do go follow me there. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's skip all the bullshit and let's get straight into the good stuff. Okay. So what do we have going on? Okay, what do we have going on today? Well, of course, one thing that we've been paying extremely close attention to has been the fact that we needed to see Bitcoin breaking the trend line. Now, of course, we have seen that Bitcoin has broken the trend line a few times over in the past, right? We saw a little bit of a break here. But realistically, this is probably the most definitive one we have seen in a while, right? And so, considering the fact that back here, it was very clear what happened and how this failed, it gives us an idea of exactly how we can prepare for what we are getting now. Okay, let me explain exactly what that means. Look at the Twitter, man. Jeez, the Twitter's going crazy. Okay, so what do we have? Well, obviously speaking, the best case scenario at this given point is that Bitcoin sits above, stays above, does not fall below at any point this downward sloping macro trend line. Okay, that is best case scenario. If we're capable of doing that, even if we start to see this trickle down here and the price does come back under $40,000, that is totally okay. But best case scenario is that we stay above the trend line. Historically speaking, when we break the macro trend, we will see a continuation back to the upside. And that is the first sign. Hear me closely, very closely. The first sign that a reversal is on the way. It's a sign, not a confirmation, a sign. Let me go ahead and explain that, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at just previous things, okay? How has this gone historically? Well, obviously what we saw back here was the fact that we saw the break of the trend from September and then we just continued upwards. If that happens now, obviously no one's going to bullshit and kind of complain about that. I think obviously we would all love to see that happen. But let's take a look at a few other examples of exactly how these downtrends have played out and what they've meant for us, okay? So, kind of paying attention to what happened, say, back here. We had a few different trends that we needed to pay attention to. So, we're going to go over trend number one and we're going to go over trend number two because this is extremely important. So, what we can see happen is that, of course, we had trend number one, which is going to be all-time high, retracement high, rejective high, this one here. That also led to us seeing a breakout from that one. So, there was nothing really exciting that happened once we broke this trend. We were just going back to the upside. But what I want you to pay the closer amount of attention to is this right here. Okay. So as we started to see this fall, we saw the downtrend, boom. We started to see a break and we set a new rejective high. And that was extremely important because it gave us another point to go off of to say, okay, once we break this, we're probably going to look good. Now, pay attention to how once we finally saw a distinctive break here and we held it for the first time, we trickled down, we trickled down, we trickled down, we trickled down all the way down. But look how we held this trend line. And once we finally didn't have this level of rejection above us, this key level of resistance, that was the first step for us to be able to see this continuation back into the upside. Paying close attention to even something like this, right? In which we saw this downtrend, boom, we saw the breakout. Boom, things were looking good. But what happens is that from that point forward, we saw a continuation and a pullback, and we actually started to set some lower highs on the shorter time frames, right? We saw boom, the high, a low, a lower high, a lower low. That's a downtrend. But look how we back tested. We held that trend and allowed that to see continuation back to the top side. Now, I'm not going to go into every single one, as of course we have other things to talk about, but you guys get the big picture. The big picture here is that when we break these trends, it is extremely important that we don't just break them, but that we hold them. Okay. And that's what's going to be the distinguishing factor of if we are going to see continuation or if we're not going to see continuation. Now, many of us, whenever we look at 2019 into 2020, a lot of us do look at this as if this was going to be a black swan event. Many of us, including myself, do believe that Bitcoin without this, right, which isn't fair to say because it happened. You can't say without it, but you get it. We would have probably seen something of this nature. Now, what we saw happen back here was that we saw the breakout. We were unable to hold, and that is where it became so important because even back then, people were like, "Okay, we got point 1, point 2, point 3 that establishes a trend line. We broke the trend line, which looks fantastic." But look how we closed back down below it. We then established it again as a rejection, and then we continued back to the downside. Guys, this is still on the table. So I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news or the dickhead who's on here kind of going against the crowd, but at the end of the day, this is a good first sign. But this is not enough to say that we are back into full swing bull market. Now, before you dislike the video and hate me, let me explain what confirms that we are going in that direction and that this is the first step of a confirmed entrance back into our bull market here, okay? So now that we know that it is incredibly important that not only do we hold out here, but obviously we do need to continue back to the top side. Okay. Now, whenever we look at this from more of a macro perspective, minus the trend line, and we just look at this, from a downtrend, well, what's the next thing that we need to see? What's the real big confirmation if we are able to hold outside this trend line that this thing is actually going back up and we're making some growth? Well, let's think about exactly how these things play out. Well, what is the downtrend? Let's maybe just start there. Maybe make it real easy. What is a downtrend? Well, and lower lows. It's quite simple, right? I mean, there's not too much to be confused about there. And realistically, whenever we're going to be doing some analysis, one of the biggest confirmations that we can have is that a downtrend is over is by what? Well, obviously you have to break one of those rules. Well, considering one of those rules is the higher highs, well, at this given point, realistically, though we might be seeing this break, which is beautiful, do not get me wrong, we're still in a downtrend. But what's amazing about the fact that we got this trend break is the fact that our ability to recapture a new higher high at this point becomes much easier due to the fact, again, that we don't have this strong level of selling pressure sitting above us. The bears have just weakened and the bulls have felt strength. We all feel great today, right? We all feel phenomenal. We are all thinking, okay, this could be it. This could be the entrance back into the bull market we've been looking for. And that little bit of spark of confidence, sure, could lead to some short-term capitulation event as the whales try to shake out those overly confident investors who are going to open leverage trades at this point, which they will. But typically speaking, that sign of strength in which we break through the first trend, again, even if we do trickle down from here, is the first sign that we're seeing the bigger move to the upside. Well, usually whenever we see these bigger moves to the upside on a daily perspective, we also have to monitor our Bollinger Bands. That's incredibly important. Now, what just so happened was that step number 1 and step number 2 happened in one big swoop, in which we saw the clearing of our 20 simple moving average, right here, right, in which we cleared that 20 SMA on the daily charts, as well as the fact that we cleared the downward sloping trend line. Now, that's a bit coincidental, but you can see that that's the average. This trend line was around the average. And so at this point, generally, whenever we see the clearing above the 20 simple moving average, the failure to hold it will result in a resortment back to the bottom side of your Bollinger Band envelope. Well, what does that mean? Well, looky here. We cleared it. Boom, we broke out. We came back down to this 20 simple moving average. Let's zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. And what you can see is that on this fake out, we came back down to back test this and we're completely unable to hold that 20 simple moving average, which led us to see this resortment back to the bottom side of our Bollinger Band envelope. So as we are looking for confirmations, we have to be quite aware that at any given point, before we get into the confirmation to the upside, at any given point, if this thing starts to roll and we lose this trend line, and we lose that 20 simple moving average, we're probably going to see another capitulation event similar to what we saw back here, back towards some of these lows, and that is a bad sign at this point in the market, okay? But again, like I said, let's start talking about some of the upside potential, as right now, that is not happening, okay? Now, what's going to be important is that, again, we need to break the rules of the downtrend. Well, the easiest thing to say is that if we're going to break the rules of a downtrend, we need to get back above $44,000. I know $40,000 looks amazing, and the title of this video is back above 40,000, and all of that looks beautiful, and it is amazing, okay? But it is extremely, extremely, extremely important that we are capable of setting the macro high after coming out of a downtrend. That is where it gets important. Because even if we start doing this, right, and we do continue back downwards, sure, if we're able to hold above this trend line, that is a sign that the bottom could be soon, but that bottom is not yet established realistically until we are capable of at least setting a new higher high. We have not done so yet. So technically speaking, although we are breaking the chains of the bear market we are in currently, we have not yet entered into that full swing of a bull market, in my opinion, until we are at least capable of recapturing $44,000. Remember, this was step number one. Step number two is the 20-day simple moving average. Step number three is the setting of the new macro high, which gets us above $44,000. Those are the three steps for us to see at least a full retracement and reattempt to enter into the bull market at some of our higher up $50,000 to $60,000 levels. But until we are able to clear step number three, which is where we are attempting to go now, we cannot confidently say that this is just yet the bull market that we are looking for. Well, let's start to take a look at some of our indicators to say, well, is it realistic for us to be able to not only hold these levels, but to actually recapture some of these? Okay, let's take a look at some of our indicators. So first and foremost, we're going to look at our daily RSI. Now, there is something that I'm seeing on this daily RSI that I'm not a super big fan of. Now, what that's going to be is if we go ahead and we draw a straight line here, what you can see is that from this macro point on the daily RSI, boom, to where we are now, we have set a higher high. Now, when we put that in correlation, we don't actually need this moving average right now. When we put that in correlation with what we are seeing over on the price, what you can see is that we have still set, and we have not even come anywhere near that level on price. Now, what is that? Well, that's going to be what you like to call bearish divergence. Now, what this means is that although in terms of relative strength, we are seeing growth and that there is a strong effort from the bulls in order to be able to recapture some of these levels, it shows that there has been strong rejection at these levels. There have been the bears trying to fight back, and we are using a lot of this space, a lot of this room, a lot of this effort to get back above this level. But realistically, our price is not reflecting similar growth to our RSI. What does that mean? Well, what that means is that the likelihood of us, say, recovering back up on the RSI, back to these overbought territories, when realistically not seeing that much of growth in terms of retracement to the upside, becomes much more likely. Because once we start to interact with some of these levels up here, our growth to the top side is extremely limited. And when we start to see this thing getting overextended with the price not moving as fast, it can say that this trend in which we are seeing could get exhausted way prior to us being able to set a new high on the, a higher high, all-time high perspective. And that does start to cause some concern that we could see some type of dead cat bounce back into the downside. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, it's not necessarily the end of the world, right? I mean, we saw something extremely similar back here in which we saw the RSI getting extremely overextended, continues down, continues up, bearish divergence, but then we see the reset. And so what it tells me is that at some given point, this thing is going to see a larger reset, whether it's now and we, start to kind of consolidate and trickle to allow this to come back to lower levels, or if we continue back up to these levels and then we see a larger pullback. I don't believe that with what we are seeing right now, with on the daily RSI mixed in with where the price is now, that this is going to be something that just shoots back up to $64,000 with not much rejection, without much effort. It's going to take a rather large correction here and consolidation of this RSI to give us the ability to see the growth back up here that we need, because we don't have that much room back to the upside. Now, if this thing continues, right, and then we start to see bearish divergence, similar to what we saw here, higher highs, lower highs, well, then we would start to expect that the larger correction to the downside is going to come before we can really continue back to the upside. So what that tells me is that this is not one of those moves. And I can go ahead, I'm going to go on paper and say now, this is not something that's going to go straight up. There are going to be rejections, there are going to be pullbacks. But what's important is that as we do see this playing out, is that we hold the goddamn line. That is all that we want to see at this point. And trust me, peeps, we will go into altcoin soon. So what you need to be paying attention to is we broke out, we need to hold it. Whether we trickle down, it's fine. We need to hold it. And honestly, if we were to trickle down at this point and start to establish some levels of support at these levels to allow this RSI to kind of cool off a little bit, that wouldn't be terrible. Okay. We look at something like the hourly RSI, look where we're at. Mass extension. We look at something like the 4-hour RSI. Where are we at? Mass extension. So what that tells us is that we are going to see these indicators reset at some point. But if we are capable of seeing them reset while we establish support above this previous level of resistance, that is really what opens us up the door to get back up to some of these higher levels, the 50,000s, 55,000s. So realistically, at this given point, we have two goals. Goal number one, again, we have to stay above the trend line, stay above the 20 simple moving average on the daily charts. Now, if at any given point we do start to see that 20 simple moving average fail, we just need it to be at least after the bottom of our Bollinger Band envelope clears this downward sloping trend line. Because at some point, say if we reverse here, and this thing opens up and we fall back at this point, that's totally okay. But while the Bollinger Band envelope is sitting below this trend line, we need to see this 20 simple moving average hold. Okay. Now, in the event that that happens, just to summarize, we need to again recap 43,940 or just simply $44,000. That is what gets us back into a bull market. That's what gives us the final confirmation that this thing is back on its way and that we are very likely going to see at least some type of return back up to, possibly all the way up to 51, possibly up to $58,000. Okay. Now, even if we do clear up here, there are still the threats that we will see the dead cat bounce back to our key retracement zone in a continuation, but we will worry about that when the time comes. Right now, your focus is this. Okay. Now, whenever we look at something, let's kind of analyze the MACD just to see on all time frames what exactly it has going on to further confirm or reject our beliefs here. Well, what's beautiful about the MACD is that we did come back to one of the lowest points in which we had been in a while. Okay. Since realistically, all the way back to last summer, we hadn't visited these levels on the daily MACD. And considering the fact that we are putting in what seems to be some type of continuation here, which looks like us really extending back to the top side, you can see a bit of a divergence in this blue line there and the orange line here, which kind of just says we're opening up in the bullish territory. We definitely have the room and the potential to at least recapture our neutral plane and work our way back into bullish territory. So there absolutely on the daily perspective is more than enough room for us to be able to see growth back to the upside. We look at something like the 4-hour. We can see very similarly, we are balancing around this flat point. We are not really seeing anything too crazy yet. I mean, there definitely is still room to the upside in relation to what we have seen historically. And even if we go as low as the hourlies, we can see that, we are a bit overextended, which says that some type of consolidation / pullback is probably going to happen before we are capable of recapturing $44,000. When you zoom out on more of a macro scale out to the weeklies, we can see that we are finally starting to get signs of recovery here. As you can see, generally speaking, when we would start to see these red candles turning more of a light pink color, that would be the first sign that we were going to see some type of recovery here, that we may be working our way back into bullish territory. Similarly, we saw it back here. both of these times, in which once we started to see this pink, it is historically a sign that the bottom is sooner than later. Okay. All of that to say, the bottom very possibly was put in. For able to hold these levels and able to work our way back up, the indicators, the RSI and the MACD, both do support that the bottom may have been put in. Am I under the belief that it was put in? I need a little bit more confirmation before I'm confident enough to say that, but it could have been. And we have the doors open back to the upside in an event in which we hold the goddamn line. That is all that matters. Okay. So that's Bitcoin. That's the market. That's what we need to see happen right now. People are going to say everything's back. Crypto is going to explode. You're going to see all the titles. The monthly MACD it's not updated just yet, I don't believe, because that just turned red, right? I mean, that just crossed. But we're going to see how this plays out. Of course, we do have a green candle, so we may see some type of reversal here. It kind of just depends. Monthly is still in the red, though, for sure. That's why I'm not really too focused on it yet, because again, right, we could have seen something on the monthly MACD similar to what we saw back here, in which we start to get a bit of an entanglement, because it's not as steep of a fall right here. Kind of just depends. The monthly is the only one that's not looking the best, but we haven't made a significant enough move yet to give it that move. Okay. Now, whenever we start to look at this, right, a lot of people are going to say on YouTube, I don't mean to throw shade, but they're going to say Bitcoin 100,000. Ethereum to 6,000. Crypto markets are back and gains are going to be more explosive than ever. We're going to see all of that. Okay. And it's going to be very easy to fall into the idea that this is for sure guaranteed the move that we've been waiting for. We have to wait for confirmations. Don't let this market fake you out. Okay. That is a very urgent, strong warning. Don't let it fake you out. That's the confirmations, and that's what we need to see happen. The invalidation at this point is at any given point we lose the trend line. And if we lose the trend line, it'll be a big, big, big confirmation if we come back down under $36,350 to set this new low. If we do this, we are going to nosedive, likely back down towards 30 to 31,000. I'm pretty sure about that. Okay, so that's where we're at. Now let's take a look at altcoins. Let's see what the altcoin market is doing. We're going to start with Total 2, of course, because Total 2 is just the accumulation of all of the market caps of all altcoins, and it gives us a pretty clear picture of what we need to see. So looking at where we're at, okay, on Total 2, we are looking good, but we have not seen the move just yet. Now, what does this mean? Well, considering the fact that we saw, Bitcoin broke trend, right? We saw Bitcoin break the downtrend that it had been in realistically since December, November. Why aren't our alts doing it? That's normal. Okay. So for some of you, you're going to be a little bit new. And what you're used to is that when Bitcoin moves, say 3%, our alts move 8%. When Bitcoin moves 4%, our altcoins move 10%. That's normal until we are coming out of something like this where people are a little bit uncertain. So what we can see happening is that as the market has become a little bit unstable, as people are starting to get a little bit uncertain of what the future of the crypto market lies, they tend to take these safer bets. What's the safer bet? Bitcoin, right? That's the reason why we see Bitcoin up 8.79%, but the total market cap of all altcoins is only up 6%. And it also shows that Bitcoin dominance saw this huge spike to the upside, because although people are happy with what we are seeing right now, they are not yet confident that this is the full bullish reversal that we're looking for them to just I'm going to get into Solana just too. They're not 100% confident that this is the move that we need to see for our altcoin season to continue and for the entire market to go parabolic. People are wanting to get in, but they're getting in more of a safe manner. That also supports my idea that this is likely not going to be one of those moves that just goes absolutely ballistic back up to 64,000 in a week. Okay. It kind of confirms, since people are taking something of a bit of a safer route right now, it kind of says, yeah, people are probably still a little bit more skeptical that this might just be another fake out and that we might need to wait. My guess, of course, because that's all this is guessing, is that as Bitcoin starts to work its way back up, and if it is capable of setting a new higher high on a macro scale back above 44,000, I would say that's probably when we'll really start to see Bitcoin dominance start to take a beating, and many of our other alts start to outperform, which would look something like Total 2, for example, seeing that stronger breakout to the upside. Well, that is because, why is that? That's because at that point, many people would be much more confident that Bitcoin is seeing the bullish reversal. And as Bitcoin starts to see the bullish reversal leading the market into some growth, then people will be more willing to take on some of their more risky bets when it seems a little bit more realistic for us to continue back up into a bull market. Okay. So the fact that we are seeing some of our alts or most of our alts underperforming Bitcoin at this point is not surprising. And it's definitely the healthy thing because it shows that people aren't, just absolutely ape shitting in right now, just going ridiculous right now, and just seeing, and what's the best word? Like, they're not taking super huge risks because when people take super huge risks, that's typically when we will start to see that the whales don't let that happen, right? They're like, oh, you want to take super big risks? Okay, we're gonna flush you out the market. Now we're seeing this move a little bit more smart, and as it moves more smart, that is much more sustainable. Okay, so looking at total two, of course, we are still waiting to see that it does break this downward trend line, and which has been in since the beginning of the year. Once we do minimize total two and we bring up total three, we can see that it is performing relatively similar. Total three, once you subtract Bitcoin and Ethereum's market cap from the total market cap of all cryptos, we can kind of see here that this thing is struggling a little bit more. Looking at total one, two, and three, this is the total market cap of all cryptos. Total two subtracts Bitcoin, total three subtracts Bitcoin and Ethereum. You can see here that it just goes down. What that shows is that Ethereum is doing better than the majority of your other alts, and Bitcoin is doing better than your Ethereum and your other alts, right? It's kind of like a ladder. The safer options right now are doing better. And as you can see, total three is still quite a ways away. And I am under the belief that until we do see more confirmations from Bitcoin specifically, that'll likely stay this way. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, does that mean you should be aping into Bitcoin or altcoins? Well, realistically, I wouldn't really be aping into anything right now. Personally, I would much rather wait and see. Give me one sec. Let me check something here. Are we good? Okay, there we go. Okay, so my stream told me that. Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, so my stream was telling me that there was no viewers in here. I didn't know if the stream went down. Anyway, so what does it mean? Well, I'm probably not going to be aping into anything right now. The reason being is that, again, we have not seen the full blown conversations that are the full blown confirmations in which we have been looking for. So personally speaking, if it comes to, where do we ape into, the way in which I'm playing it is I'm going to not buy really Bitcoin. I'm not really super interested in accumulating Bitcoin at this exact moment, but I'm going to look to see if we get the confirmation. If we get the confirmation here, I'm going to use that as my confirmation, again, I hate using that word so much, that likely our alts will follow next. And then I'm going to start to look to get in some of our layer ones, our Solanas, maybe ADAs, probably Ethereums, your dots, your links, something of that nature. It's much, much, much more important right now to monitor that Bitcoin can make the move we need it to then say the alts are going to make the move that we need them to a little bit further. And it might give us a little bit of a window to see those trades start, right? Because if our alts are kind of underperforming, then Bitcoin makes that confirmation. We may have a little bit of a window in between when Bitcoin starts to confirm and when altcoins actually start to move. That gives us time to load up on our alts as Bitcoin continues back to the top side. That's what I've done the last couple capitulation and downtrends in which we've been in. This one, and I'm going to try it again here. So that's kind of my game plan. Okay, just looking at the quick chat. Look at if you look at ETH downtrend, you can see that every time it went up, it went down by more than. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the whole market's pretty much been doing the same thing. Okay, so with that being said, again, I won't really be accumulating alts now at this point until we at least hold. But realistically, $44,000 is where I think we will start to see kind of that switch happen. So let's look at some individual alts. So let's look at Solana as it does, reach up to $110 currently. So looking at Solana at this moment, it has been within, this ascending wedge. Now, you guys do know that I am very, very weird about ascending wedges. Well, why am I weird about ascending wedges? Well, generally speaking, okay, whenever we start to see downtrends, ascending wedge, we will see the continuation of a downtrend unless macro environmental factors allow it to continue to the top side. More often than not, though, we will see these breakouts to the downside of ascending wedges. Now, What does that mean for Solana? Well, what that means for Solana is that as we do continue up, this thing is looking absolutely phenomenal, but we definitely should be a little bit more wary that at any given point, even if we continue here, we could see a falling out to the downside. And I am still relatively expecting that. Can it shoot up to the top side? Yeah, it absolutely can. But realistically, while we have not gotten even close to recapturing our macro high, which is sitting closer towards $150, I'm definitely just kind of letting Solana play out as it needs to, right? So my current plan with Solana is that at this given point, I would go ahead and say that I'm going to hold off for sure, but I've added it to my list of cryptos that I am looking to buy relatively soon. Okay. What I need to see from Solana is that one, it is capable of making its way back up to the trend line. Similar to what we've been saying about Bitcoin, we need to see Bitcoin make those confirmations to open the door for Solana and all of our other alts to break their trend lines as well. And at the point in which we break the trend line, I might do a little bit of buying here, just a tad. But I realistically won't be doing some extreme accumulating until we again confirm that we are probably out of a downtrend, which looks like us setting a high back above $150. Now, some of you may not want to do that. Some of you might not want to say, well, I don't want to see it go up 39% before I buy in. And I understand that. Personally, my averages are much lower into some of these lower levels down here. So I'm still in profit. So I'm not really too concerned about it. But if you're looking to start a position in Solana, the way in which I would go about this in a smart way is that I would at least wait for that trend line to break. I would at least wait for that trend line to break because at this given point, there is still the chance that we see Bitcoin get rejected at some one of those key levels, whether it goes all the way up to 44 and continues back downwards, or something of that nature that pushes all of our alts off of this trend line, and we don't see the breakout ever happen. Because just because Bitcoin is giving us signs that we're continuing doesn't mean that the door is open just yet 100% for our alts to break out. We need to see Bitcoin open that door. It's not done so yet. So accumulating Solana at this point definitely is not something that I'm interested in. And I want to see that it is capable of at least breaking the trend line and then maybe even rolling. That's totally okay. Because we are in a pattern that more often than not will see a resolution to the downside. And we've not cleared a key level of resistance. Those two, that combination for me, not really intriguing for a buy just yet. Okay. Now, why is this macro bullish? In the short term, could be bearish and we could see a break to the downside. But why is this pattern specifically, this right here, macro bullish? Thank you, Stanley. This is macro bullish for a bunch of reasons, but the biggest one being just what is it? It's an uptrend. Now, something I want to show you guys is we're going to just kind of take a look at this thing from more of a perspective of less, okay, what's the general rule for this? You know, ascending wedges coming off of downtrends generally will lead to breakouts to the downside. Let's skip all that shit and let's just kind of look at this for what it is. What we have is that as we did hit some of these levels, once Solana came back down and reached and hit this, we set this high. This is a rejective high. This was our all-time high at one point. Rejective high, breakout. The price came all the way back down to that previous rejective high. And what happened? Well, what happened is that the bulls got confident. The bulls said, we're going to buy. And we saw accumulation here. Boom. And we pushed the price up. We came back up and set an equivalent high. The bears were like, no, we're not going. You know, we're not going anywhere. We want to push this down. The bears wanted to see this at 50. What happened? They tried to come back down, and the bulls succeeded in stopping them from pushing it back down here. And we set a higher high, a higher low. Well, then the bears, we started to see the price get pushed up. The bears tried to push us back down again, and we established a trend in which the bulls said, this is the line that we're not letting you break. We pushed the price all the way back up to break this equivalent high. We broke the rejective high. We cleared the range, and now we've set this new higher high here. Now what we can see is that the bears are like, no, we're still not done. We're pushing this price back down. Where to go back down to? Down to the trend line. So what you can see is that although historically, at some point, based off of statistical data, we were more likely than not to see a break of this trend line at some given point. What we can see is that as we reach these lower levels, and as Solana has been losing support throughout this entire run, the bulls are getting more confident in having a much higher level of success of pushing the price back up to the upside. That shows confidence. That shows an overall transition from fear to acceptance of this market. And it also shows that there's potential for us to find a bottom much sooner than later as people are getting confident at these lower levels. So what that tells me is that it is very possible for Solana to see this break, and it is very realistic to say that if we are going to see Bitcoin break $44,000, we are very likely going to see Solana at least break trend. Bitcoin will lead the dance, open up the doors, and our alts are just going to mosey on behind it and then take off running once the doors are open. The way I look at it is that Bitcoin has the key to all the doors, right? And maybe we're in this house of like 7 doors, and they're confirmations. And what Bitcoins is going to do is it's going to walk up to each one of those doors and it's going to unlock them because none of the alts have those keys. Ethereum could one day, but Solana, ADA, Matic, Dot, none of them have these keys. So the alts are just kind of walk and mosey on behind Bitcoin and kind of walk behind Bitcoin and just allow this thing to open up all the doors. And if there comes a door where Bitcoin's not able to open, well, the alts aren't really going to do much. They're just going to sit and they're going to wait and they're going to fall and wait and do whatever they want. And then as we finally get that last door open, Bitcoin, it might start to run, but the alts are much faster. They are much faster. And once they get into that open field where there's not those doors in front of them, that's when we see that altcoin season kick off. We're not there yet, but we are looking now at this point for Bitcoin to open up the doors in which we need it to. So for us at this moment with Solana, this is macro bullish that we are seeing an ascending wedge coming off of some of the lowest points in which we've seen, especially running into that rejective high. We need to get back above the trend line, and I won't do mass accumulation until we can at minimum clear this previous local macro high sitting closer towards $150. Okay. Looking at Ethereum, we'll get into DOT at some point soon. Looking at Ethereum is trying its absolute hardest to make that move. Okay, what we can see on the hourly charts is that Ethereum has just been working its way and working. Oh, let's give it some price targets. Let's give Solana a price target. I forgot. My opinion is that Solana definitely has a bunch of fundamental problems and things that it needs to work out. There's no secret to that at all. Everyone knows Solana crashes, it goes down, it gets attacked, and all these things happen that they're working on. But I am under the belief that they are going to succeed. As they, the thing about Solana is that Solana's kind of taking a bit of a different approach to ADA. ADA's taking its time and trying to make sure that there's as little problems as possible. Whereas it seems like Solana's whole game plan is like, let's just let this shit go and hope for the best. And if something comes up, we fix it. And they've done a great job up until this point. So my opinion on Solana at this given point is that if we are capable of clearing $150, we are going to get that retest back up to 200, and I'm pretty confident in saying that. Okay, so once we clear 150, I am looking for that $50 move of over 35% back up to our 786, and if we clear $200 and hold above here, I do think we can recapture that previous all-time high. How long does that take? I have no idea. Anyone who says how long it's going to take is an absolute liar. None of us know. But I am under the belief that the clearing of this macro high here opens up the door back to $200 100%. And it all starts first with the trend line, second with 150, third breakout target to $100 to $200. Okay. Let me go ahead and just say it, guys, because it is getting a little bit relatively annoying. Okay. Whenever we are going through these cryptos, if I'm going to go over one, I'm going to go over one. If we're going to go over DOT or Link or any of them, we will. And if we don't have time today, it's totally okay. But while we're going over one, a lot of people are looking to see Ethereum, looking to see Solana. Let's not do the whole go over DOT, go over this one, go over that one. It just gets a little bit annoying for the people in the crowd. Okay. So looking at Ethereum, okay, because Ethereum is one of those ones that is extremely important. And that's something that people need to realize is that although Bitcoin is important as well, it's much more important that Ethereum maintains for our altcoins as well, in my opinion. Okay. I'd say when it comes to our alts specifically, Ethereum maintaining or growing is extremely important. It's much more important than people realize. Now, we saw something similar to Solana right here, right? So look what happened. Well, what we saw was that Ethereum comes down and Ethereum starts to work its way back down to these levels that some of us never. Looking at the charts, we can clearly see a massive crash coming. Yeah, I mean, that's probably what they said back here too. But what we can see is that as we entered into some of these levels and retested this rejective high right here, the last rejective high that we had before we entered back into our bull market, we held. And as we held, the bulls had a lot of success here. Now, is this anything different than what we saw back here and back here? It's hard to tell at this point. Okay. Because some people will say, well, yeah, it's different. Look how much more green it is. Some people will say, well, look at the recovery Ethereum has been seeing. Yeah, it's different because it looks better. Well, one thing you also have to understand is that the lower we go, the more macro long term support levels we're going to run into. Because remember, whenever we look at this pullback here, this was again the last high that we saw before we took off. So, of course, many people are going to look at this as extremely important. That's going to be extremely relevant. And those relevant levels that come right here, the relevant levels that come right here at this rejected high, the relevant levels that come at these lows down here, they're going to become much stronger. The bears are going to be much less successful at pushing us through these levels. And that allows that support to be stronger, meaning that the bounces off of these levels will get stronger. That's why these bottoms come when they come. And so, although this looks much better, you have to also you also have to consider the fact that we're running into stronger levels of support. And so, just because we are seeing more green doesn't mean that this is for sure explosive back to the upside yet. Okay. Bitcoin opened up door number one, but there are more doors to open. So for Ethereum, it is a very similar solution. It is a very, very similar solution to this equation for us to start to see the growth. Step number one comes once we clear the trend line. We're trying to right now, but we've been unable to up until this point. We do have key reject. We are getting rejected here, and that is something you can very clearly see, right? But we are doing a good job of trying to recover it. So what I'm looking for Ethereum at this point is that we clear this short-term trend line right here. Now, you could realistically say that there's another one, right? You could say that there's one up here, and that is something we will address when the time comes. But right now, it is very obvious that ever since we started to see a more steep fall here, we just got to look for these trend lines. Look for the trend lines and see if that pressure is starting to be relieved once we break them, right? When we look at it from this perspective, and we actually move it over a little bit as I did, Ethereum has made that break. So it is pretty good. It is pretty good to see Ethereum making this break, and I would like to see it hold out here. But realistically, with Ethereum, it is a similar solution to Solana and Bitcoin in that we need to see the new macro high get set, which for Ethereum looks like $3,400. I think what we would see happen if this is just going to be a mass recovery is that Bitcoin breaks 4,400, Ethereum breaks 3,400, our alts break trend right here, and they start to really kind of break. They're somewhere around here at that time, and then the market's like, oh shit, here it goes. Then we see growth from all of our alts. But I'd say step number two for the market itself, look for Ethereum to break 3,400. That's the next step at this point, now that we've broken this trend here. Now, one thing someone didn't mention, and I can always pull up because I think it is important to take a look at, is just volume. Okay. Do we have the volume to really support a big breakout? Because let's look at some of these things and let's look at how these played out in terms of volume. Okay. So let's go ahead, let's draw the trend and let's kind of see how this played out. Well, whenever we saw the breakout here, we could see that volume was steadily on the decline. Decline, decline, decline here, decline here. I'll just do a straight line. Boom. And then what you can see is that we broke the decline in volume here, and we started to just maintain a flat volume that allowed us to see growth. And it was a very similar thing to what we saw back here in the summertime, in which we saw something. Let's just go ahead and let's just give it this. Okay, let's say this is our trend because it was a little bit weird. What you can see is that volume was just steadily declining throughout this whole thing. We attempted the breakout here. We were unable to. Back into the decline, back into the decline. Then we got the breakout. We broke that little trend that was there. And then we started to pick up a little bit in volume. And what we can see happening at this exact moment is that we are getting something of what looks like it could be the start of that break, right? Because this move just happened and we're already starting to pick up volume a little bit. So it is looking good, but I think volume, the fact that volume has very obviously picked up right here than where we were back here, it definitely, that's definitely a very obvious uptrend there, but we just need to see volume continuing back to the upside and holding some of these levels. Okay, just in my opinion on volume, I like to look for once we start to see a little bit more of a move over the next couple of days to see how volume's holding up maybe over the span of 72 hours or something of that nature. Okay. So again, I think we went down for a sec. Give me 1 second here. Are we good? All right, I think we're good. I think we went down for just a split second, but I think we're good now. Let me see. Let me check the stream. Give me 1 second here. Okay, 1 sec. Everything's acting up. Hold on. Okay. I don't know exactly what just happened. I think my thing just got unplugged. Audio. How do I sound? Do I sound weird? 1 sec. Everything. Okay. Give me 1 second. Hold on. All right, let's give that a try. How do we sound? How do we sound? Yeah, it was just for some reason something just got unplugged. We're just gonna check it real quick. All right, let's give that a try. Okay. All right, cool. All right, sweet. Okay. Anyway, so I have no idea what just happened in my stream, but we're just gonna go with it. Anyway, so with Ethereum, again, it is going to be incredibly important that we are capable of coming back up to re-clear 3,400. I would say equally as important as it is that we see Bitcoin get back above this macro high. Because guys, please do remember, at any given point, this thing could turn into this thing could just turn into a fake out. Okay, I mean, I know this sucks, and I know no one wants to hear that, but we have not gotten everything that we need to see in order for us to say that this is the bull market. 100%. So for Ethereum, your levels to pay attention to again, do we hold the trend similarly to Bitcoin? And do we get back above 3,400 bucks? That's like a, what's that, 12%, 14%, 13% move from here. We can do it. I know we can do it. We just got to see the move. Looking at ADA. So ADA specifically has been doing something interesting. Okay. We've been paying close attention to how ADA's been interacting here at some of these levels. And what we can actually see is that ADA made a break for the top side. Looking at how we've kind of had something of a, this key level, just checking stream. Okay, we're all good. You guys can see that ADA made that break. ADA made that break in the setting of the new higher high. Volume did kick in over the last couple of hours, and we actually saw it hold this key level of support. Now, the thing about ADA is that ADA just does what it wants, right? And so I'm not personally going to get too excited until we can at least see that ADA is capable of clearing this rejective high that it's at about $1.12. What we can see that happens is that ADA sees this breakout. It comes back up to $1.12, and you can see we cannot close above it. We are just simply struggling every single time to close above $1.12 to $1.13. And so for ADA, I'm looking to see, can we finally break through that and hold above it? If we can get like a day or two above it, then we'll start to look for some of those higher levels to the upside. And obviously ADA is nowhere near close to breaking trend yet, but this is definitely a good step in the right direction. Let's go ahead and say that. We can always see that that dollar level just holds for ADA. I mean, no one wants to see ADA go under $1, even, the people who hate ADA. Or they probably do. But anyway, you get the point. Okay, so overall, pay attention to ADA. Definitely do pay attention to see if we can get the closes above $1.12. That would definitely be a good sign. Looking at something like DOT. So, of course, we did see DOT make a friggin' break for it, right? So, DOT over the last 20 hours, 24 hours, last day or so, saw a beautiful move. This was one of the technically strongest moves I've seen in a while. Let me explain why. So, what we saw from DOT was a swing high to swing low. Now, what happened from DOT is that we set in this low, we set in this high, we came back down and back tested our key Fibonacci support level. Now, what generally happens is that when we bounce off of this support level, we're going to go back up to the Fibonacci resistance level to the top side. So what you do is you just box in your support, your macro support. Boom, green box. Nope, don't need that. And then what you do is draw a Fibonacci from your swing high down to your swing low. Now, what we can see, we're going to draw another box. This is generally your range, in which the crypto that you're covering is going to range at this area. Range and range and range and range and range. And that usually, if you're able to work its way back above the Fibonacci 618 to 786 to the top side, there is a strong chance of it working its way back up to retesting and clearing that all-time high, as long as it stays above the 618 level in the short term. So what that means for DOT now is that we are almost at the move back above $20.52. And now that's going to be very, very, very important for this thing for the long term. Okay, let's go ahead and we're just going to get the daily charts, not the weeklies, the dailies. pulled up so you guys can see why that's so important. So we obviously established something of a trend here. And now the whole goal at this point is that we have to continue upwards and upwards and upwards and upwards in dot and come back up to retest this. And what we've been seeing happening is that when we're capable of re-clearing these previous highs, we do see a pretty strong extension to the upside. And I'm under the belief that if we get above 2052 and we get like 2 or 3 4-hour closes or maybe even a daily close up there, there's a strong chance that we might start to see this thing pushing this thing back up towards our trend line, and then we start to see the retest. Maybe we accumulate, consolidate, then boom, see a break there. And it comes down to this. Now, another reason it's super important is because as we start to see the break, now that we've broken the Fibonacci to the upside, and we've put in a very similar high to back here, the threat of this M-top is now in play. And what that means is that at any given point, if we come back down below this midline support right here, we could be looking at a more continuative fall to the downside. And we don't want to see that happen. So now that we've broken that Fibonacci on the short term, we need to get back above 2052 for DOT. We get back above there, though, it opens up the door for this retest of the trend line, which is DOT's whole goal. We need to get back above that trend line there. So for DOT, obviously, we are not in a buying position confirmation-wise in terms of, are we in a confirmed move back to the upside or not? But it is definitely looking much better now that we broke this key level of resistance here. And on the hourly time frames, you can see that we are holding up quite well. It's very obvious that the 786 level is important. You can see the relative strength in which we do have right here is pretty high, okay? And you can see the rejection that we saw back here was high as well. So it just shows, it confirms that this is a strong level to pay attention to. Okay, so overall, whenever it comes to DOT, it is extremely important, again, that we break $20.52, and then we use that to come back up to our trend line. Trend line breaks, new local highs, all of those things will then give us full confirmations. Looking at ChainLink, so exactly what I just talked about for DOT is what we're looking for ChainLink right now. So what you can see happen is that we had this swing low, or swing high to swing low event. And we are coming back up to backtest the Fibonacci's now that we held the Fibonacci on this swing low to swing high event. And a very easy way to explain this is that if you need to see how low this thing might go, you start with the low. If you want to see how high it needs to go to see a breakout to the upside, you start with the high. What I mean by that is I want to see if Bitcoin starts to roll, how low might it go? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the low, and I'm going to draw it up to the high. And that gives you your Fibonacci to the downside. And now that we are starting to see the break to the upside here, I want to see where does Bitcoin need to clear for us to continue upwards? How high does it need to go? So since I need to know how high it needs to go, I start with the high. And I draw swing high to swing low. And that gives you your Fibonacci to the upside. So since we've now entered into this Fibonacci to the upside, $17.51 is our 0.786 level that will be crucial for us to recapture these highs. And if we break 1751 and hold, obviously that'll be important. I think that's also going to be another strong push, probably back up towards $19 would be my next price target up towards these levels as we start to try to interact with this previous level of volume here. Okay. So that's my opinion on Link. So I'm not going to keep going into too many of our cryptos. I'm going to go over AVAX because it's up 11% and Matic because it's up 7.5%. But I want you guys to understand kind of the general concept of where we're at right now is that though this is looking good, many of our altcoins still have not seen that real confirmation that we are going to see growth, and that growth is, extremely likely. I'm paying attention. I'm seeing a bit of a lag spike here, so I'm just going to give this a quick second. Don't want to. I'm just kind of watching out to see if it recovers. Give me one sec. Are we good? Trying to see if we're good. I don't want to. Okay, I think we're fine. Am I good? Okay, I think we're ready. Okay, anyway, so I always have to watch my internet. It's super weird whenever the weather is bad, and it crashes sometimes, and I don't want to just be talking if it's crashing. So again, the general trend in which we're seeing in the market right now is that the door is open, and that is being reflected by great growth, 9%, 8%, 6%, 5%, 11%. But those of you who've been in the crypto market for a very long time know that this ain't shit. There are much higher gains to be made. And where the gains will come from is the confirmation on Bitcoin and probably the confirmation of Ethereum breaking that 3,400 level. I think once we do both of those, that is really when y'all are going to see me posting buys all over the place, right? Now, all of my buys I do in my Discord, obviously, in the Patreon. So do that if you'd like, but I am going to keep you guys as up to date as possible, okay? So the general belief right now is that you don't get too trigger happy. That's the word. That's the term. Don't get too trigger happy. Just because we're seeing a little bit of green doesn't mean this whole shit can't flip flop right in your face, right out of nowhere. And next thing you know, you're down 20% again. Okay. Your confirmations are what completely battle FOMO. That's it. FOMO is one of the most easily triggered emotions in this entire market, especially when we've been seeing something like Ethereum, for example, tanking. It's very easy for the bulls and the whales especially to trigger some type of larger growth to the upside with no news. There was really no news today that triggered any of this. The whales very possibly could be like, okay, let's kind of, is this all conspiracy? Sure. But they could be pushing this thing up, trapping all of these people in before we see that further collapse to the downside. It's very possible. What battles that? What battles that is your confirmation. Your confirmations to the upside, you're setting up new local highs, the structural establishment of an uptrend, and your overall belief that is backed by facts is the way to go. Okay. And so when we look at ADA, Solana, Link, DOT, all of these are almost there, but they're not there just yet. And although they can get there, something I want you to understand, although they can get there, and some of you might come back to this stream and comment on it and be like, haha, Tyler, you're dumb. You should have bought right there because now it's up to $46,000 and you missed out on 15% gains on Bitcoin. That's totally okay. I hope that happens. I hope that my cautiousness is unnecessary. But I would much rather sacrifice potential gains than some extreme losses that could very possibly be on the way if this thing is unable to hold these levels. I would rather err on the side of caution right now while we've been in a massive macro downtrend than playing with fire. Okay. So although this looks pretty good, there is still risk here. And playing around in the fire has not really proven to be the best thing to do recently. Okay. So overall, that's my outlook on it. Okay, you sound far too mature for crypto. I'm trying to make some gains in crypto without being a complete degenerate, okay? Because I have degenerate ways. Don't get me wrong. I do dumb shit quite often. But with my channel, I have to present my rational thinking, okay? This is my rational thought. Let's look at AVAX, because this shit is just gone. So AVAX, still in an uptrend, still doing quite well. It is very obviously broken that trend in which it was in there. But again, what we have to pay attention to is the fact that AVAX, although this looks good, has not gotten really to do anything that DJ and Tyler is a monster, bruh. But this looks more to me like a relief rally back up to the trend more than anything else. And until we can confirm that it's not, I'm not too excited, okay? Because why? As we saw the crash, the further away from the trend we got, the more room to the upside that there was, meaning that we would need to see a larger correction to the upside in order to kind of reinstate that that downtrend in which we were in without getting a bit too overextended. Remember, these things, just like they get overextended to the top side and need to pull back in order for that continuation to be healthy, these falls that get too extended to the downside need to pull back in order for that downtrend to remain healthy. It works both ways. This was an overextension. Look at your Bollinger Bands. Look how extended out to the downside we got. That was an overextension. We needed to see the correction, which is what we're seeing now. And I want to make sure that realistically, this correction isn't a correction, that it's a reversal. We're not there yet. We can't confirm that just yet. What does that confirm? Well, likelihood is I would like to see that AVAX is capable of re-clearing this trend line. From there, we're going to look at the more macro Fibonacci's. You know, we could realistically say that like $86 is a strong confirmation to the upside, but of course, we'll worry about that once we break the trend. Until we break the trend, not too interested. Y'all, if y'all ultimately buy Bitcoin under $50,000, that's a sell long term. I absolutely agree, 100%. But it's also very easy to say you're just going to buy and buy and buy because, right, I mean, how much stress have you been going through? Where's 50? Anything under 50,000, right? how much will it probably have pissed off thousands of people to have been buying here and 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 here? Although it's you're buying under $50,000 and you know long term that there is growth there. First of all, why not maximize your gains by looking for confirmations? Second of all, why put yourself through that emotional level of stress? That's not something I'm big on. That's just not something I'm big on. Okay. So, oh, I know you mentioned it, but how long after Bitcoin and Ethereum break 44K and 3,800 should it hold before you buy? 4 hours? I would like to see 24 hours. I would like to see a back test. Like, I would like to see, what is this, Bitcoin? I'd like to see Bitcoin do this and back test it and hold it and continue upwards and clear this high here. That's the best case scenario. Knowing my degenerate ass, who does get a little trigger happy myself when I get a real confirmation, I might just buy a little bit with stop losses set somewhere down here and kind of just go for that, go for that trade. That's me. That's something I would do. So a back test, however long it takes, would be optimal. If not 24 hours, what's that? 8 4-hour closes. That'd probably be good. With a stop loss, I'm definitely going to start setting stop losses pretty soon. Let's look at Matic. So Matic's making a good move. Of course, we did see that Matic was in a descending wedge, or more of a descending triangle, realistically. But right now, Matic is still struggling to recapture its two previous local highs. So one thing we know about these descending triangles here is that when we break to the top side, there's two levels that will likely push you back down. Whatever one's created the triangle, it's pretty easy. So when you break to the upside, your breakout target is the previous high. Once you clear that one, it's the next one. So with Matic, realistically, I want to see Matic clear $1.75 and clear both of these key levels of resistance. And once we do that, I think that establishes enough support here for us to see that break towards the trend line. Okay. I think Matic is going to be one of those alts that if we do start to see the rest of the market pumping, it'll probably be one of the first ones to go. Okay. I think it'll be one of the first ones to take off, especially if we see Ethereum break $3,400. Okay. So be looking for a Matic over 173. That's a very strong sign that we're going to see some type of continuation relatively soon. Okay. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm at. Okay, Luna. Oh, let's go over Luna. Let's go over Luna too. Okay, so Luna, it's a very, very clear. It's a clear picture. I mean, it's almost clear as day. We can see here that Luna, it has a very obvious level rejective high sitting at $53.78. We have to get above that. Before we talk about anything else, we need to see Luna get back above $1.78 and start to look to really establish it. Now, is there some type of short-term inverse head and shoulders? Sure, there definitely may be. But personally speaking, I would say that if Luna clears 53.78, my price target on that thing from that point forward would be back up towards maybe even as high as $58, which looks like a nice gain, right? I mean, that's a 8 to possibly 18%. I think a recovery back into our Fibonacci's to the top side would happen. So I think what I'm going to do is if we start to see some 4-hour closes above 53.78, I'm going to go down under this little accumulationary area here. I'm going to set a stop loss at, let's go ahead and give it like $50. And I'm going to go ahead and start open up a little bit of a long trade here. Now, I'm battling, a possible loss of 7% with a possible gains of equal 8%, possibly up to 20%. And I'm okay with that. I like Luna. I've been looking for a good time to, really increase my position. You guys can see that we did break this more short-term trend here. We did hold it well. And if we look at this thing from more of a macro sense, we're still pretty far off from those highs. And so there is still the argument to be made that we can see the push back up to these levels. And so for that reason, I'm pretty confident in this being able to make this move. So that's the trade I'm going to make on Luna. Let's go ahead and make that light blue. And let's move that back up towards the top. That's one of those ones I'm looking to buy pretty soon. So yeah, so Luna, that is kind of the move I'm looking for. The rejective high is very obviously 53.78. And so that's where we need to clear before we can get too excited about anything. Okay. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with Luna right now. And yeah, so that's what we're gonna go ahead and say for Luna specifically. And yeah, so realistically, that's kind of about it. We're about an hour and 3 minutes in, and I'm not gonna hold you guys for too long, of course. I don't like to keep you guys here too long. And so with that being said, the biggest things and the biggest takeaways, the things you need to be paying attention to summarize, is that Bitcoin has opened the first door, but there are multiple doors that need to be opened. The next one is going to be at $44,000, and we absolutely need to hold above the trend. And there's so many times we see trend breaks that resort to nothing. Okay. And so that's why I'm so adamant that we need to see that. One thing I wanted to tell you guys about, I wanted to remind you guys about, is that something I've been talking about on my channel a lot recently because I didn't think about the importance of it was how much money we are all losing in crypto, right? What I mean by that is right now, say if you buy one Bitcoin at $40,000 and it goes up to $100,000, you just netted a $60,000 profit. In 10 years from now, you want to sell it. So say you buy at 40, it goes up to 100. Okay. You just netted $60,000 in profits. What's going to happen when you sell that 10 years from now is you are going to lose, depending on what the regulatory policies are at that point, between 10 to 40% on that entire game, meaning you could lose up to $25,000 of that $60,000 to taxes. And I talk about this every video, and I'm going to talk about it every stream. I didn't think about how important it is until I started to get the big picture of the gains that are coming over the next 5 years and the amount of money we're going to lose to taxes, okay? So what I did is I reached out, I went looking around, and I found a company that has it's kind of like a crypto retirement account. It's trading tax-free in crypto. It's I Trust Capital. I'm going to go ahead, go down here, and just show you guys. The link is the very first link in the description, okay? What I'm going to ask you guys to do is go click on open an account. And when you open an account, all you need to do is enter in this information here, create an account, and verify your email. You don't have to pay. It's free. It's totally free. You don't have to do any of that. I encourage all of you to do this right here. Open this account and verify your email and look at what type of money you can be saving over long terms. Look at this. So if it's an IRA, there's a penalty for early withdrawal. So the thing about these retirement accounts is something you have to realize is that depending on the penalty, which comes with different packages, you need to look into that, obviously. If you end up having to sell your Bitcoin earlier than you say you planned on it, that just means you're going to pay taxes as you normally would have if you're trading on Coinbase or Binance or anything of that nature. You're taking on the idea that if you hold it long term, you might not have to pay taxes. And if for some reason you have to sell it, you're just going to pay taxes like normal. I would much rather take the risk and say, well, I might not end up selling this for a very long time, and I want to secure some of my gains. And I give all my money away to the government, realistically, that's printing a whole bunch of shit, right? So I just encourage you all, open an account. It's very free, 100% free, and just verify your email. When you do that, you will start to see the things they offer and the ways in which you can save up to 40% on every dollar you make. That is significant. That's substantial. I've done it. I've already started my account. I'm funding it. I'm doing all that. If you do fund it with a certain amount, you get $100 for free, but I'm not even going to go there. I'm not even going to go to the extent that you need to fund it. Just open the account so you can see yourself. It will convince you in its own. That's all I ask, okay? So with that being said, guys, that's going to be about it for today. That's realistically about it. I know, just look into the security. Of course, I don't want to take up too much of y'all times looking into it. I can send you a link if you'd like to. I can post about it. There's a lot. I mean, they're probably the biggest crypto retirement account that there is. Okay. The link is in the description below. Okay. So with that being said, everyone, that is going to be about it for today's video. I know everyone wants this to be the beginning of the bull market. I do as well. Okay. I'm tired of this bullshit. It sucks. But we need to be very vigilant in the idea that this is not the final door being opened yet and that there are more confirmations on the way. I'm going to update you guys as much as I absolutely can with how these things go. Do we start to see progress? Do we start to see this thing actually making the turnarounds that we need it to? Do we start to see it clearing the levels we need it to and opening up the doors for the alts so they can run? I'm going to update you guys as pretty much every single day. The only day I take off is Saturdays. So I'm going to update you guys on that. The ways in which you can take advantage of that simply is by subscribing to the channel, turning on notifications so you don't miss one update. Please do go follow my Twitter. I've been doing much more technical analysis here. As you can see, talking about Bitcoin, simple moving average, ADA Cardano, Ethereum, Bitcoin. What else we got here? Mana, Ethereum again, some more ADA, some Solana last night. I've been talking about all of that over on Twitter. So Tyler Hill YT is my Twitter. It's also provided in the description below. Do go follow me there. And again, if you guys did enjoy today's stream and you think it was helpful and beneficial and more people should see it, if you like this video, more people will see it, and that will also help me a lot. But with that being said, that is realistically going to be about it for today's video. Of course, I hope you guys did enjoy this entire thing. And if you did, you can always, again, let me know by smashing that like button. And I will see you all tomorrow. Peace.